Boiler up, Brags in the stands. Let's go.
I'm Sasha Stefanovic from Purdue Men's Basketball, and you're watching Brags in the Stands.
March Madness is here. Boiler up. Let's go.
The Bears, they started this new tradition last year where they celebrate their wins the correct way.
Bottle and Sylvie, ESPN 1000. Don't miss it.
I know what you mean.
It's like their own Philly.
Okay. Okay, I think what it is.
We shouldn't be showing this. Am I crazy?
What a great sign that is. What have I told you? 17 minutes of rain would wash away 108 years of drought.
Do you see this team growing into the team that you were in 2005?
are ridiculous.
And there it is, ladies and gentlemen, the highlights and the lowlights of this weekend's events at, I always call it Bankers Life Fieldhouse, but it's the Gaines Bridge Fieldhouse, whatever they're calling the Pacers' home stadium now and home of the Big Ten tournament this weekend. That's why my voice is a little raspy, a lot of yelling of defense chants and everything else to help try to inspire the troops, but came up just short, just like in 2018 at Madison Square Garden. The Purdue Boilermakers lose to the Iowa Hawkeyes in the Big Ten title game. They certainly had some high moments, as you saw right there with Jaden Ivey with the great finish against Penn State, and then they took down Michigan State the next day, but ultimately couldn't get the job done. Craig, disappointing, but we will dive all into all our thoughts on the Big Ten tournament. And then, of course, what they're going to be doing in March Madness, me and you separately, or together, I should say, after we do this very exciting interview with a very special guest, Purdue legend and a guy that locked up Steph Curry. And he is joining us now. Kris Kramer joins the show. How you doing, Kris?
I've been better. Tore my ACL 2 days ago, so
yeah. Bobby Riddell, who's someone that joins us a lot on this show, he told me that just a minute ago in our DMs because I told him he's always welcome to come on if he wants to bust your chops. So I'm very sorry to hear that you're playing professionally in Spain. Very sorry to hear that. How did that occur?
Oh, I appreciate it. Thank you, but I was just playing defense and denying the ball, and my guy cut back door. I tried to stop and just hyperextended my knee, and it wasn't a big trauma or anything, but I felt some instability, some discomfort. So, I went out and had the doctors check it. They weren't 100% sure I tore my ACL, but then the MRI revealed a partial tear of my ACL. So,
man, that's really disheartening to hear. Really sorry to hear that. And for you to carve out some time on this silly podcast, that means a lot to us considering what you're going through right now. So, have you ever had an injury like that before? I mean, I'm assuming not if in the way you're describing, not knowing if it was or wasn't when it happened.
Actually 4 years ago to almost, about a week earlier, I tore my ACL in my other leg. And we were playing in the top 8, I think, of Euro Cup at the time. I was playing some of the best basketball of my career and got a defensive rebound, pushed in transition, went to jump, and, just a complete rupture of my ACL. So at that point, I knew what happened. This time, currently, I suspected what happened, but I didn't twist. I didn't really have a forceful move. It was just kind of a freak thing. Both of them were non-contact. So it stinks, but as an athlete, it's part of the game. It's very unfortunate when it happens, though.
Yeah, I mean, when you consider how many years you played, just growing up as a kid and through high school and college, it's a lot of mileage that you guys put on your bodies. Would you say the first time you went through it, the recovery, when you came back from it, how long did it take you to trust to play like you had played before?
The first time I had, it was a forceful traumatic injury. I had a lot of bone bruising and everything. So the recovery was a little bit tough, but it probably took me between 7 and 8 months when I really felt comfortable, and then a few more weeks after that to really get the rhythm of playing full speed, going against guys in practice and preparing for a game until I really felt good. But it was an everyday at the beginning, finding little wins and getting a couple degrees of extension more, a couple degrees more flexion, and then just trying to find some way to win each day, and try to do that over 6, 7, 8, 9 months. Just try to keep combating those wins over and over and pushing yourself as hard as you can, and it kept me sane, doing it that way and not getting lost in because I was playing the best basketball in my career. There was talks of, big time money, big time offers coming, the year after. And, but I'm very fortunate. Unbelievable support system. My wife was amazing through all that. My daughter was amazing. So having them by my side definitely made it easier. So having them by my side this time is going to make it, it's going to be the exact same.
Yeah. Well, let's hope, having been through it before, that this time through, you kind of know how it works, and you have a much more speedy recovery. As I was doing trying to pull some different pictures to have for the show today, just going through your timeline, it does look like you have a very beautiful family. So congratulations to you. That's good to have a support system like that. And yeah, when you're going through a rehab like that, you certainly find out how committed you are to the game, and so here's, I know that you certainly have a lot of love and passion for this game. So I know that you'll come back through it stronger than ever, but again, really sorry to hear that. And, again, appreciate you carving out time on here after going through that. So, to kind of turn things into the more fun or positive talk, like I said, Bobby Riddell is, he mentioned that, he played with you for 3 years. You guys are buds, and he couldn't make it on because he's got to pick up his kid at 5. I was like, forget the kid, just come on the show. But I told him I was going to start with you to give us a story about Bobby that he wouldn't want us to know, because that's what we're looking for is the dirt on Bobby, so we can harass him when he comes back on.
Oh.
He said there's no dirt, so I'm challenging you here to find some. He does seem like a choir boy.
I can't throw my man Bobby under the bus. But,
that's what this is for. I mean, it's not like he's got a job to lose or anything.
all I'll say is, I won't go into detail, but I picked up Bobby and Robbie one night at Mad Mushroom when Mad Mushroom was across from Mackey. Bobby will know exactly what I'm talking about.
Oh, we'll be pulling this story from Bobby.
And then I would say the night before we left to go to Australia for our overseas trip, and we are all at Bobby's house on campus, and we have to leave at 8 in the morning. And Bobby's dad is on the bus with us going on the trip, and almost how embarrassed his dad was by just how Bobby was reacting to the night before, I guess you can say. It was, as an outsider looking in, it was really funny. Dr. Riddell is a very I don't know him great, but he seems very straight-laced, very, yeah. And you see Bobby living it up a little bit, and he's got that look on his face like, what, come on, like, you're embarrassing me here, let's get it together. But
yes.
Those two, I would say, yeah.
Bus trip, and then his time at Mad Mushroom. Well, we'll take those notes down, and then we'll bring him to Bobby's table next time he's on, and maybe one day we'll get you both on here, and maybe you can get some payback on you. But that's really funny. I'm being rude here. This is my co-host Craig Bowers. He's been with me all of this year, and we've kind of struck up a pretty good friendship here. He's a much more diehard Boiler fan than I'll ever be. I'm new to this game. I've been in it for about 5 years now. This is the Sasha Stefanovic stand show because that's kind of where I come into play when it comes to Purdue. I'm a good friend of his and watched him play throughout high school, and now I've kind of inherited this fandom and this fan base, who's kind of breaking my heart right now because I know Sasha's going through it with the fans, and I got to bite my lip because I'm not going to write checks that he has to cash, but I have no doubt he's going to turn it around. But I wanted to introduce you to Craig because he's been a Boiler fan his entire life, and he's got to be the babysitter to about 10,000 Boiler fans on a very popular Facebook page called Boiler Diehard. So, if I got to deal with the fans, so does he. But I'll let Craig take it away with the first question, or basketball question, I should say.
First of all, I'd just like to say, Kris, you're still definitely a fan favorite, even though you've been overseas for a little while now. Your name comes up basically anytime a Purdue fan is talking defense. It's either you or Raphael Davis's name that tends to come up in that conversation. So I think speak for all Boilermaker fans that we feel for you and what you're going through today, and certainly hope for a speedy recovery for you on that. So with that said, I asked this of everybody, Raphael, whoever it is we're talking to. You had some really good years at Purdue and some really good years in Mackey. What's the moment that sticks out to you the most? What's your special Mackey moment?
Oh, first of all, nice to meet you, and thank you. My time in the black and gold was unbelievable. I tried to do anything I could to win. But what moment? That moment, but I guess that's not in Mackey, but that moment was awesome right there with that picture, advancing to the Sweet 16. I would say when we were playing against West Virginia at home on New Year's Day, the electricity around that game, the electricity in the arena, I think we got, maybe 2 shot clock violations in a row or something, and the crowd was the loudest I've ever heard it. We go on to, win that game. We smacked them. And it was kind of a great win for us against, a great West Virginia team. Even though we lost the game when Robbie was just unbelievable against Ohio State, when he had, I don't know, 27, whatever in the first half. And then I think Robbie's freshman, my sophomore year, we beat Wisconsin at home. They stormed the court. They pick Robbie up. Those are some of the games that stand out on the good side, and then on the negative side, the one that I just can't shake is losing to Wofford at home, and then everything that brought for us as we traveled to Las Vegas for that holiday tournament. That was the loss was awful, obviously, and then everything that we had to endure and practice those next couple of days before even when we did play. I mean, it was awful.
Do you tend to remember the losses more than the wins as a competitor, or do you try to focus on the positive?
I think you can go both ways, but when you take a step back and you've been out as long as I have, you try to remember the good time. There were so many unbelievable moments that we had as a team, individual moments, great things that happened. Those are the ones that those memories you want to relish and hold on to. You have to let go of those losses. You have to let go of all the negative that happened. You just gotta, you can walk in Mackey Arena and say, I was part of that Big Ten championship. I was part of that Big Ten tournament championship. I played with all of those guys whose, numbers are up in the rafters. I don't know, obviously what the future holds for me, but it'll be a great thing whenever I can take, my wife, my daughter to a game and, show my daughter some things, now that she'll be able to understand and she'll love to go and see just, I guess, how different the atmosphere will be from being overseas and to really experiencing, Big Ten basketball, especially the way Purdue does it in Mackey.
Yeah,
it seems like. Oh, I'm sorry.
No, I'm always going to go to my go-to question. I don't mean to cut you off, but you mentioned the court stormings, and it's something I've asked Robbie and I've asked Bobby, and Craig mentioned. You and Rafe are some of the people that are really recognized as the culture builders that for what Purdue has become. And I don't know if Purdue in your time ever had the court stormed on them by another fan base. You mentioned when Purdue fans stormed the court. I'd love to see that at Maggie, but I think they've reached a point where they're not doing that anymore as a program, which means you've entered a new tier. But just going to games this year, and I'm trying to go to as many as I can be, and that it's Sasha's senior year. The thing that has stuck out to me is the losses suck, but it blows my mind to watch these blue blood, what are used to be considered blue blood, programs and rivals that always considered themselves above a Purdue now storming. There was 4 teams that stormed the court on Purdue. And yeah, while it's not fun when the team loses, I'm sitting there taking a step back like, man, 5 years ago, I don't think any team would have stormed the court on Purdue. Now it's like every time Purdue loses, it's the other team's Super Bowl. How does that make you feel as someone that is recognized as someone that started this with Matt Painter and the program and the culture he's built, that now these rivals in schools look at Purdue in the way that they do and rush the court like they just won the Super Bowl?
I think it's, even though you lose, let's say this, when you go and play on the road, there's 2 signs of respect you can get from the fans. One, before the game's over, they're all heading to the parking lot. They know the game's over, you won, game over. They're leaving the seats, they're trying to beat traffic. On the flip side of that is when you do lose and they storm the court. It's the ultimate sign of respect that they did not anticipate beating you. They were not supposed to beat you. They just, they had a better night, whatever the case may be. But, it is just a sign of respect that, maybe not the players, but the fans, everyone in the arena did not expect to win that game.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, Craig, I apologize for cutting you off, but we were crossing paths there, so take it away. I apologize.
I was just going to go back to his answer. It seems like so many times when I ask that question, the play that somebody references or the game is about defense. And that seems, I don't know, maybe it's not, but that seems something unique to Purdue fans that like they get the loudest over a defensive play rather than a crazy offensive play. Does that stick out to you about that fan base?
You know, the one thing about Purdue fans is, you know, not every Purdue fan is going to be extremely knowledgeable about basketball. They're not going to know the X's and O's. Maybe they might not, but they're going to know when they're watching a game which team is playing harder, which team is playing harder defense. And that's like one of the challenges that Coach Painter always gave us. You need to show the person in the seats that has no idea about basketball, but they can understand who's playing harder. They need to walk out of that gym and say, there's no doubt Purdue played harder than the opponent today. And, you know, I think it started with Coach Katie and, you know, defense lives here, play hard, that whole mantra. And, you know, we came in, we jammed the basketball, we picked it up 94 feet. We created turnovers. Defense led to our offense, where Coach Painter now has evolved a little bit in his approach. You know, now obviously they have one of the best offenses in the country. They're very dynamic. And when you play such amazing offense, you're going to lose a little bit defensively. And you have to have that give and take. But I think as Purdue fans, you know, defense is such a staple. And those are kind of the moments that they hold on to. You know, you take a charge, you get a shot clock violation, you know, they put a number up on the defense lives here, and you know, the crowd goes crazy, and you know, those are the ones they hold on to. You know, there might be, you know, I mean, a couple Jaden Ivey dunks or something that people are going to remember because they're just like, whoa, like I didn't expect that, you know. But you know, I think a lot of those, I agree, are definitely going to be defensive plays.
Yeah, you know, Craig and I have gone back and forth about different things with the fans this year because I have a high expectation for them. I, you know, this is what this show's all about: fans in the stands, and I take a lot of pride in trying to do my part in the stands and cheer loud and chant loud. We're doing it at the Big Ten tournament. I basically lost my voice over the weekend, and you know, I do feel like it helps. You know, the team, it helps inspire them a little bit. I heard a lot of that from football players and basketball players alike when fans were not in the stands during the COVID year. And now that they're back, you heard a lot about how, you know, they feed off of that. And Craig always is telling me, like, yeah, the Purdue fan base is so used to, you know, defense and, you know, being that big moment. And this team, like you said, it's a different type of Matt Painter team, and he's starting to move towards recruiting offensive type of players, shooters and scorers that may not necessarily be defensive first guys. Now, when we had Robbie Hummel on, we asked him, you know, it's getting late in the season. Do you think that there's any chance that this team, who's been criticized for not having as the same kind of defensive, efficiency or effectiveness, do you think that they can turn that around? And Robbie kind of laughed before I could even finish the sentence because he didn't think so. He's like, "Oh, you are who you are at this point." Now, fast forward here 7 or so games since that interview. Do you feel like this team has started to turn a corner defensively? From my eyes, and I'm no basketball expert, and Craig and I, we discuss things after games. I feel like, I don't want to speak for Greg, but in the conversations we have had, we feel like they have started to turn the corner. It doesn't mean they're the greatest defense to anything like your teams back in the day, but what are you seeing? Because we know you're locked into what they're doing game to game. We see you live tweeting during the games. What do you see here as of recent that defensively in the way they're playing?
I watched the interview or the podcast with Robbie, and I specifically remember him laughing when you asked this, because just from watching, I laughed when you said it as well, because I'm like, there's no way. I agreed with Robbie. You are who you are, and but I think Purdue did get a little bit better. They're not a lockdown defensive team. They're not the greatest defense efficiency and all of that. That's not them. But I think they were better. I think they were more engaged with the scouting report. I think their communication was better. I do think that the communication is the biggest thing for Purdue going forward. They need to talk on switches. You got to talk early. When the ball screen's coming, if it's guard to guard, we need to talk if we're switching, if we're not. Because the worst thing that can happen, that happened a few times last game against Iowa, is we leave we leave Jason Bohannon, Jordan Bohannon wide open. We leave Keegan Murray wide open off of a broken play, off of a no switch. And, I think if we're not going to switch, the two best players in the other team are the guys that, worst case scenario, we double team them. If somebody else makes a play, we'll live with it. But we can't leave those guys wide open and let them beat us. So I think the communication is key, especially in the pick and roll situations. But then when we double team, when the ball's in the post or against mismatches, we need to talk about who's in help side, who has the first pass on a kick out, and then on second side of that is know who we're closing out to, know the scouting report on that person. Do we want to dare them to shoot it? Do we need to close out hard? Everybody else needs to come into help side, and then we need to rebound. Because this Purdue team their defense isn't leading to offense. The only way we're leading to offense is if we get the rebound, give it to Jaden Ivey, and he beats everyone down the court, which happens a couple of times a game. But, we're not turning the other team over to get easy baskets like Iowa did against us. So the communication, I think, is very big, but I think we made strides, but I don't know how much better we can get, to be honest, with just the lineups that we play. I mean, your pick and roll defense with Zach Edey is only going to be so good. He's 7'4". With Travion, he can do different things. But it just comes down to communication and, the scouting report. I know Coach Painter, they drill it, they watch video. The guys know exactly what's going on. It just comes down to the execution.
Yeah, I'll let Craig take it after this comment, but that is my observation. When I watch this team, I feel like I don't see other teams look at their coach after every play. And this is something I've seen for 5 years. They every time, especially when a mistake is made, they already know whose fault, and they're looking over there. Sometimes they'll try to plead their case like it wasn't me, and Painter will make a motion of like, you should have been up, or you should have, and you try to decipher what they're talking about. Yesterday it was Ethan and Mason having trouble, fighting through screens to chase down Keegan. He sends Mason off, brings Ethan in, and then Ethan gets chipped, and then Keegan gets loose for another three on the very next play. And Painter just turns around at the assistants like, that's a tough assignment for anybody, So, Keegan dropped 35 in the game before. He dropped 19. If you had said before the game you're going to hold Keegan Murray to 19 points, you'd feel pretty good about it. But unfortunately, we had the 17 turnovers, which I'm sure we'll talk about. Go ahead, Craig.
Yeah, and like you said, I mean, in terms of being a little bit better, at least 7 out of the last 9 games we've held them to 70 or less anyway. And I think a lot of that little bit over 70, some of that was from us fouling Iowa this last time around towards the end of the game and whatnot. So maybe a little better, maybe.
Yeah.
So
no, for sure,
from that standpoint,
no, definitely. Definitely a little bit better. Definitely a little bit better.
Yeah.
We'll take it.
For the average fan on a pick and roll defense like that seems to be kind of one of the two thorns in Purdue's side, playing with a traditional big man. I mean, what's that guard's role and what's that big man's role, the way that Purdue tries to guard a pick and roll in terms of what they're doing and what they can maybe do better going forward?
I think it's different. They've done different things depending on who they're playing. Traditionally, they play, especially with Zach, in, let's say, a drop coverage where Zach is deep in the paint. That's the best thing for him. That's the best thing for Purdue. The guard has to fight over the screen, not get hit, really press up into the ball, get skinny, fight over the screen, and you'll live with guards taking contested pull-ups. Zach stays deep, tries to take away any angles, and, being 7'4", he's going to, if not block, alter a lot of shots. With Travion, sometimes they're more aggressive. They show on the pick and roll. Sometimes they're flat. And, but the guard, their role is the same. You have to get into the basketball, keep the ball pressure, fight over the screen. If you can not get hit and, once you're through the screen, you can get back in front of the ball, that's, a win in everybody's book right there. You fought through. The big didn't really have to help. You got back in front of the basketball. They're going to have to run another pick and roll or swing the ball and go into something different. And then I've seen Purdue play down or ice or blue coverage where they say Trent Frazier, they push him one side. And, Trent Frazier likes to go left, so they push him right, let's say. And so they jump on his left hand, they push him right. The big is on his right side. And, they funnel everything to that big. They don't let the guard go to a strong hand. And that's been the one thing that I've seen where their breakdowns have come. When you play a down, an ice, or a blue coverage defensively in a pick and roll, you really can't let the guard use the ball screen to the middle, or reject the ball screen, get over to a strong hand, because then the big is out of position. They're offensively, their big is rolling with a gap, and then the guard guarding the basketball is trailing the play, so they have a 5-on-4 essentially. But in a pick and roll defense, the biggest thing that can happen is the big talks early to the guard, calls the screen, calls their coverage, whatever they're going to do. So everybody knows what's going to happen. The help side is in position, and you.
Are you a believer, a complete, you're a Matt Painter disciple, right? You're a believer in his system. I have a guy that I've had some DM conversations with, huge Purdue fan, but he's at a point where he's questioning the defensive system, the philosophy of helping, because he keeps pointing out how Purdue is ranked like in the 300s of giving up 3-point attempts and 3-point makes on the season. And in the last game, they had 23-point attempts in the first half alone. Do you think that it's the players and the execution, or in the way that basketball is played nowadays, with everyone being able to shoot a three, including a lot of bigs, that there needs to be somewhat of an adjustment to that help defense that at times can leave a guy sprung open in the corner?
I'm just a player, man. I'm not a coach. You're trying to have me question Matt Painter?
I'm just a fan of the state. I'd be too afraid to ask Matt Painter this question.
I thought that was kind of bold, Greg.
Well, these are the things that fans say. I don't know. They ask me. I'm like, I trust in Painter. Everything. I think Matt Painter's the best coach in the country. But when someone tells me the numbers of them in the 300s, I just feel like it is a fair question to be asked. Now, would I have the balls to ask Matt Painter? No. I'm going to ask you.
No, but I mean, it's something I think about too when I watch. Do I think Purdue overhelps on the post? Yes. Do I think they always need to go and double team? No. I think it's a personnel who has the basketball, who's guarding the basketball. If there's a matchup, sometimes you have to let that person be one-on-one, Say it's Mason Gillis. Like, you're by yourself, man. Don't foul. Play good defense. Make whoever it is take a contested shot. We'll live with it. If they make it, shake their hand. Good shot. You got to keep scoring over top of us. But once you get into foul trouble with certain matchups, I understand going to double. But I think when we do double, we have to be more aggressive because we're almost stagnant in our double. Like, we're coming, but we're not putting any pressure on the basketball. So they can see exactly where they want to pass. There's not really any pressure on the ball. And we're sending Zach Edey or Trevion Williams, who long wingspan, big guys. We need to be getting deflections and steals off of that double that are leading to Jaden Ivey, ESPN top 10 dunks that are leading to, leak out pick sixes for layups that are getting us points in transition that we aren't getting without Jaden getting the ball and pushing in transition. But I think the game has changed as well, and people are jacking a lot more threes. So on when we don't put that pressure on the basketball and they're skipping the ball, they're throwing a direct line pass. There's no air on the ball for, to close out, and we're late. So if they're throwing the ball, a missile across the court like Trevion does to, Sasha, and the ball is straight and there's no time for the defense to close out. Those are the passes that we can't have. So we're giving up a wide open three. We don't have any time to close out. There has to be air on the pass. They have to throw it over Zach. They have to throw it over Trevion. They have to throw it over Mason, over Caleb. And then our defense has time to go and close out and know who we're closing out to. You don't close out the same to Keegan Murray as you do to somebody else. You know what I mean? Yeah, not everybody.
I get it. And one of the things that Painter yells of all the he has a few key words he yells all the time. He's most notorious for yelling "move" a million times in a game, but he yells "hands, hands, hands." And to your point, that is part of the solution to the defense that he runs is you get your hands up and then it makes them pass it. And it's not the perfect pass where they can't just collect and shoot. Sometimes it comes off their knee or their hip and they got to readjust. And by the time they've readjusted, here's the defender. They got to move it to the side. So, I agree with you in that sense in the fixing of how Painter wants to do it as opposed to just, scrapping the system itself.
Yeah.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
What sorry.
No, you're good.
As you're moving forward here, just to change the topic here a little bit, we've talked about defense a lot, which makes sense because, like I said, if defense gets brought up in my Facebook social media site, like there's a Kris Kramer reference within 2 posts from that. So you should feel good about that. But as we kind of look at this as a team now going from the Big Ten tournament, getting ready for the tournament, how does that kind of change what you guys are doing as a team or as players? You know who you're playing in that first game. You got to go to a different city and all that maybe you're not as familiar with, but then you don't know who you're playing 2 days later if you win that first game. Are you preparing for 2 different potential teams ahead of time, or do you just do that in the 24 hours in between? I guess what kind of changes prep-wise compared to a normal week during the season?
I think the Big Ten tournament kind of prepares you for what you're going to face in the NCAA tournament. You have to survive in advance. You have to worry about one scouting report, win the game. You have a short window to prepare for the next game. And then, it just goes on from there. But in this situation with Yale, you're going to prepare for Yale like you're preparing for Illinois. You're preparing for any other Big Ten game. You're going to go in there knowing everything about Yale. They're going to know strengths and weaknesses of every player, shooting percentage. They want to go left. Are they a driver? Are they a shooter? Every set they run, every out of bounds play they run, every side out of bounds play they run, they're going to know everything. And then you put everything into it to win that game. And then from there, it's a quick turnaround. You learn as much as you can. You get the scouting report. You know, your assistants are, one of them is preparing Yale. The other two are preparing for Texas, or I don't know who the other one is, but
Virginia Tech.
Yeah, Virginia Tech. You know, they're preparing for those two. And, you know, so, but all the eggs are in one basket, and that's beating Yale. And then, you know, it just keeps going from there. But I think the Big Ten tournament prepared them for this. You have to show up. You have to win. You have to survive and advance. And so that mentality and, you know, that back-to-back, you know, obviously there's a day in between, but that mentality is going to be key for us moving forward. You know, hopefully they can get some rest. And, you know, when I asked last night on Twitter, what do we think of the draw? Everyone was pissed off. Everyone was pissed off. Oh, we got screwed. We should have been in Indianapolis. Oh, we should have been in Chicago. Just irate. But on the flip side of being close, I get it as a fan. It's an easier commute. I understand. But as a player, the further away from your home or close to home, the less distractions there are. So maybe it's good for Purdue to get out of Indianapolis, to get out of Chicago, to get, you know, an hour outside of Chicago, to be in, you know, to be in Wisconsin. And, you know, it takes away some of those distractions that come along with being close to home. Everybody wants tickets, you know, this person wants 10 tickets, you know, trying to see if any of your teammates have any extra tickets. You're worried about all the other hoopla, you know, coming into the game. And then when it comes down to it, you're trying to focus on Yale. When it's almost too late, you're worrying about all the other things that, you know, come around with the Big Ten or with the NCAA tournament.
I was actually – I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, go ahead. Go ahead. No, go ahead.
I was actually excited we didn't get Indianapolis. Like I just have bad feelings from past experiences that when I saw we didn't get Indy, I was one of the fans that was actually excited about it. And Milwaukee's not that far. Like,
no,
man,
it's not.
If you're going to support this team, get your ass to Milwaukee. It's not that far. So,
absolutely.
Seems like the prices are skyrocketing. Last night, before the teams, like right when the teams were announced, they were at like the cheapest were like $50 to get in, and I figured it was going to be fine because like it's Milwaukee. There's multiple teams, multiple sessions. I can take my time. And then today they've shot up on the secondary market to like 150 for cheapest. So it seems like the house is going to be packed. I'm always the optimist. So as far as the draw is concerned, you know, obviously Yale, I don't want to take them for granted because we all saw what happened with North Texas last year, and any dog can have their day. But at the same time, if Purdue can't beat Yale, you might not hear from me for a few months. So, you know, I got to have faith in my boys that they're going to be able to pull through. And then to Robbie's point, when he was on the show, he said, you know, Purdue's a tough team to prepare for in one day. You know, conversely, as how for what Purdue's got to prepare for, now you think about those other teams having to prepare on a short notice, you know, and you talk about all the plays that you have to, you know, scout and tape review. Well, there's a lot of plays Purdue runs, a lot of different things they do. So that gives me a little confidence. And I like the idea of some of these different matchups of teams Purdue could potentially play. You know, Virginia Tech's no pushover. They just beat the pants off Duke in the ACC tournament championship. So, you know, but I guess it's one game at a time, obviously, for everybody. Purdue fans are, you know, certainly superstitious. So I'm sure that no one's looking ahead from the first round at this point. That is my question. I was thinking about on my ride home from work. The Big Ten doesn't seem to have much luck in the tournament. The last time the Big Ten has won, the national championship was with Mateen Cleaves and the Michigan State, Spartans. We've had some teams make it to the Final Four, Michigan a few times, recently, Wisconsin, but do you think there's anything to what do you think it is? Do you think it's that the Big Ten just beats the crap out of each other for 2 months? Or do you think that the Big Ten style of play, which is a little more old school, feels a little more like 90s basketball, and the rest of the country seems to be playing this new era, run and gun, jack it up? I don't see as many sets being called, but at the same time, I don't watch every single dribble of every team. I do watch a lot of college basketball, but you watch those teams down south, and it's just like chaos up and down the court the whole game, and it's a much more slower paced, under control game in the Big Ten. Where do you stand when it comes to why the Big Ten hasn't had the success that it wants to have as a conference in the NCAA tournament?
I think it's a variety of factors. I think the draw obviously plays a huge factor. The style of play is definitely key. It's a very structured, very defense-oriented. I guess Iowa plays great defense, but they play more free basketball this year than I've seen them play before. Indiana plays a little bit more free, a lot more pick and roll with Xavier Johnson and Trace Jackson Davis. But Purdue has transitioned a little bit into that as well with Jaden Ivey, but they obviously run so many sets. But I think the style of play definitely is a factor. And then sometimes, you have to show up every day and have your A game. And if one game you don't have it, or you run into a buzzsaw with somebody playing well, there's a luck that goes into it, But definitely the draw, who you play, when you play, where you play, that's a factor. But I think the style of play is definitely a big key. There's teams playing very free, let's say NBA style of basketball. We're going to get up a lot of possessions. We're going to get up a lot of shots. And we're going to let our talent just lead the way. We're going to go out there and just make plays consistently. We're going to try to get to the free throw line. We're going to make shots, and we're going to live with the results. And, I hope this year's different. I really do. I think, the Big Ten is so deep. They have teams that could make a run.
Do you think Jaden can be that difference, that wild card that isn't, the structured player? Craig's one of the biggest proponents of this, that guys like Jaden Ivey are the ones that can win you games in the March Madness tournament. We saw it obviously in the first 2 games against Penn State and Michigan State. And then even when they went on their run to cut it to 1, it seemed like they cut a 8-point lead to 1 in 40 seconds. And Jaden it was just like he was like a man possessed in that moment. Do you think Jaden is the type of guy that can be that difference?
Oh, absolutely. I think to win in March, you need a guy like Jaden, a guy that can go get you a bucket. It doesn't matter the situation. It doesn't matter how you need a bucket. The 3 that he hit against Ohio State, if you need him to go get a bucket or take over a game like he did in Mackey against Illinois, when the second half, he was just unbelievable. It looked like he was, an NBA All-Star playing against college guys. That's honestly what it looked like. And he needs to be special consistently for Purdue to be, or to have this run that they can. But it's not all the pressure isn't on Jaden. Jaden needs to play under control, take what the defense gives him. In certain situations, he definitely needs to be more aggressive. But as the focal point, in the guard that's penetrating, getting in there, if he's under control, he's going to get Sasha. He's going to get Eric. He's going to get Mason. He's going to get Isaiah. He's going to get Ethan Morton. Those guys wide open shots. And if you can consistently get those guys wide open shots, percentages are going to win. They're going to make those shots at a high clip. And, if Sasha can get going and make shots, I know he struggled, this weekend. It happens. Percentages are going to win. He's going to make shots. Mason's going to make shots. Isaiah's going to make shots. But Jaden needs to live in the paint. He needs to be aggressive, but he needs to not just Jaden, but Purdue in general needs to make good decisions with the basketball. Turnovers and free throws are essentially, at this point, their Achilles heel that are going to, in my opinion, that are going to tip them in a win or a loss, I think.
Take it away, Greg.
Yeah, not only in regards to the Big Ten, what you were talking there, Braggs. One of the reasons that I have a lot of high hopes for the Big Ten this year is I think typically we don't see a lot of lottery pick, top 15 draft pick talent at the guard and the wing position in the Big Ten, at least not in the last 10 years or so. Mm-hmm. And this year you got Johnny Davis, you got Keegan Murray, which he's a 3 or a 4, whatever you want to call him, but essentially plays like a guard for Iowa. And you got Ivy. I think I'm a big believer in having that NBA talent type guy that can go get his own shot at their own time. And I think that bodes well for the Big Ten this year as a whole too.
No, I agree completely. Yeah. Wisconsin can be good, but Johnny Davis has to get healthy. If Johnny Davis isn't healthy, I struggle buying Wisconsin because Wisconsin is only going to be as good as Johnny Davis.
You're not buying Brad Davis and taking him to the Final Four on his own?
Flop his way to the national championship?
Hey, I can't hate. I like Brad Davidson. He might be a little dirty. He might be a little dirty at times. Has a couple dirty plays. But I think he plays the game. He plays hard. He wears his emotions on his sleeve. He wants to win. All the things you can hate about Brad Davidson, you gotta respect. Those things about him. And with Keegan Murray, I mean, he was shooting it from 75% from 3 in the Big Ten tournament. I think it's around there. It was off the charts. He gets the ball in the post. He's a matchup problem. Offensive rebound. They put him in so many situations. For him to be successful, which in return makes Iowa successful. Then when you go and double team him there, got shooters around and people that can make plays. So
he's smooth.
I was playing the best basketball at the right time right now. So he's obviously, spearheading that, but you have to give credit to Fran McCaffrey and the job that they've done.
Yeah, in the IU game, Keegan had 32 or 35 points, and I don't think they ran one set for him. He just kind of floats around, waits and picks and chooses his spot, and found his way to 30 points. It wasn't like Kofi or Edie where they run sets for him over and over and over. He just found his way there. It was and then you heard Fran say how low maintenance he is. He doesn't have to tell him anything, other than teaching him something, and he takes it in and then executes it. So he's definitely a threat on the other side of the bracket. We got a question in the chat, and it was certainly something I wanted to bring up to you because, we saw the heroics in the Penn State game. From Greg Jones, a question: do you think Newman needs to get more playing time or Isaiah Thompson? It seems Thompson has been struggling, and Brandon could give us a nice burst off the bench. I will say before you answer, I appreciate him not throwing Sasha under the bus, or else we wouldn't be even asking this question. Although I don't love the pitting against players because I also have a lot of love and respect for what Isaiah's done these first 3 years, as a guy that has been a role player and a starter and does what the painter asks of him, and it's tough to watch, fans pick and choose between these guys. But at the same time, Brandon Newman did, all of a sudden blossom here in the Big Ten tournament after not playing since January 23rd after not making a shot since January 7th. And you got to give the kid a lot of credit because that's not an easy position to be in, just sitting on the bench while the rest of the team's playing. And I honestly thought it was one of the more magical kind of sports moments you'll see, you know, and sometimes sports has those just fate moments that it just all kind of comes together. Another Crown Point kid that, you know, is, you know, assistant coach for Purdue now, Spike Albrecht, he ran into one of those moments in the national championship game, averaging 1.5 points per game. And all of a sudden he drops like 18 in the first half because his number was called. And so Brandon found himself in that moment. You know, aside from who you think he should play over or in general, what are your thoughts on Brandon Newman's resurgence and his potential for getting more minutes in the rotation now?
You know, I think there was times during the year when he wasn't playing that I was questioning why he wasn't playing. You know, Purdue was struggling to score. Sometimes he's a guy that can make shots. But on the flip side, you understand why he wasn't playing. He wasn't playing the defense that Coach Painter wanted him to do. So you definitely have to give Brandon mad props for making an adjustment, watching video, but staying engaged, you know, not sulking, not throwing in the towel, not jumping in the transport portal because he could have done that. You know, and just staying engaged and staying ready. Because, you know, the saying is if you stay ready, you don't have to get ready. So when his number was called, he was ready. He was, you know, prepared. You know, you saw the picture on Twitter after one of the games he didn't play. It was 12:30. He was, you know, in the gym shooting. So he was ready for this moment. And he took full advantage of it. And that's complete credit to him. But in regards to playing, I think it's just going to come down to they're both going to get their chance. It's going to be whoever takes advantage of those minutes, and one is going to get more than the other. Do I think Brandon brings more to the table than Isaiah at this point in the season? I do. I think if we need to play, if Eric's out of the game, we can move Jaden to the one and play a lot of ball screen situations and spread the floor and let guys play that way. But if Isaiah makes shots, on one hand, he can be really effective, but defensively, he's almost a liability. I hate to say that, but, you know, he is just with his size and stature. So I think, you know, it doesn't matter who plays more. I think everybody's going to get their crack, but it's just going to be whoever impacts the game in a positive way more in those minutes they're given. That's going to get maybe more time, you know, moving forward and really insert themselves in the rotation. The other will, you know, take a back seat.
Just for a follow-up, and I'm hesitant to ask this because if you say it incorrectly, I might hang up on you here, but Sasha, you know, a lot of people like play Brandon over Sasha. And like I said, you know, as a normal fan, I totally understand. If I didn't have a personal vested interest in this, I'd be talking the same kind of shit on Twitter. So I don't begrudge any fan for saying what they say, but it does kind of break my heart a little bit into little tiny pieces every time I read something. I just shouldn't read it, but you almost can't help yourself. And I can only imagine when players come across some of this stuff sometimes. So I hope they don't. But, you know, Sasha obviously struggled in the Big Ten tournament. There's, you know, he continues to say that his finger is fine. He was asked by Brian Newbert after the game. You know, he dislocated it in the Wisconsin game, but then in the IU game to end the season, he had a few big time threes. So I have to trust him in him saying, and he would never use that as an excuse in general. You know, talk about what you feel Sasha brings to the table, because there's a lot of fans right now that are, you know, everybody's going to find their guy. You know, and Travion was making mistakes a couple weeks ago. Everybody was hard on Trey. Now, Trey had a great weekend, so nobody's saying anything about Trey. You know, talk about what you think Sasha brings to the – I could go on for 2 hours talking about what I think Sasha brings to the table, but what do you think he brings to the table and the potential he can bring in the Big Ten or into the March Madness tournament this year?
First of all, I get all of those. I get all of those tweets as well. People are tweeting at me, why is such and such playing and not such and such? And, what would you do? I'm not the coach. Come on. Like, at the end of the day, Coach Painter and those guys playing want to win more than any of us do as fans. They care way more than we do. And I think some people get lost in the fact that, it's a basketball game. Sasha, Brandon, Jaden, Travion, Zach, whoever it may be, isn't trying to turn the basketball over. They're not trying to miss shots. It happens. It's the physical part of the game. But to what you asked, I've been there with Sasha. No matter what's going on, you're going to say, I'm fine. You're injured, you're not. You're hurting, you're not. You're not going to put it out there that your finger's hurting. You're going to take it. You're going to say you're fine, and you're going to live with the results. But I think, like I said earlier, I think percentages play themselves out. He's going to make shots. Do I think with Sasha, the first shot I think is huge, and then the shots that follow. I think sometimes he almost rushes it when he doesn't need to, and then it is almost a bad shot at times. But I think Sasha needs to play. They're not going to leave him. It gives Travion, it gives Zach, it gives Jaden more space. He's a guy that, Coach Painter would describe as like a dead-eyed dick is when we would play. Sharpshooter. Don't leave him. Don't give him any open shots. That's Sasha. He missed some shots. It happens. Even the best shooters in the world go in slumps. Hopefully for Purdue, for Sasha this week, he comes out, he shoots the lights out, and, all of these tweets, it goes, out the window. But I think it just comes down to Sasha being Sasha, taking the shots that, he knows the shots he's going to get. Take those shots with confidence. Prepare your body the best you can. Get treatment on your finger. Rest your body, take care of it however you may do that. And, when the popcorn's popping and the lights are the brightest, show up and, make big shots for Purdue and, spearhead and lead this team as a senior, to do unbelievable things in this tournament. Like everybody has been anticipating all season. I think for this team, they let two opportunities slip through their fingers. They let the Big Ten, those two games against Michigan State and at Wisconsin, although, the Wisconsin game was two lucky banked-in shots.
Yep.
They let those opportunities slip through their fingers to not get at least a share of the Big Ten regular season title. And then, they were right there. They made that run. They cut the lead from 8-1 and, like you said, 40 seconds. And, you thought Purdue had all the momentum. And then, McCaffrey gets the and one and kind of takes away Purdue's momentum. And, they let that slip away. So hopefully they can turn it around. They can, this cliche as it is, it's one game at a time, but, they have the tools, they have the coach, they have to bring the mentality and the fight. I did an interview the other day with a lady from the Wall Street Journal about Purdue, and I said that Purdue needs to stop being the hunted and go back to being the hunter. They need to go in like they're not supposed to win. They need to go out there and destroy everybody from the opening tip and just destroy them for 40 minutes. They need to play with a chip on their shoulder like they had at the beginning of the season when they didn't feel like they were getting the respect that they should have been. They thought they should have been the number one team in the country. They had the best team and, went out there and proved it. They need to play with that chip. They need to play hungry. They need to play aggressive. and, go out there and right from the opening tip-off show that we're the best team, and you're not going to stop us today. We're not going to be denied. And that attitude is contagious. It's going to start with Eric. It's going to start with Eric. It's going to start with Sasha and just trickle down the line. And that attitude is going to go on offense, but then it's also going to be contagious on defense, and people are going to fly around and make plays. And it's just going to make Purdue a better team collectively.
I can't agree more with everything you just said right there, from the player evaluation to the team outlook, because, I was looking ahead and I'm like, everybody's like, oh, they got to play Kentucky. I'm like, if they got to play Kentucky in the Sweet 16, good, because everyone's going to pick Kentucky. And then finally Purdue can go back to being the underdogs that they always are and fight, and I do agree that it is a mentality in that way. One game at a time, obviously. So you hate to even talk about games ahead because it's like jinxing it. But we as fans, in brackets, that's what the whole fun is with brackets and things like that in general. And as far as Sasha's concerned, I'm the guy that can always spin zone it. But I'm sitting there like, well, if he had 25 points a game 3 straight days, then he'd be cold as ice next week, And I think a lot of people forget that. When the team made their glorious Elite Eight run and almost to a Final Four, they were as cold as ice for the last month leading into March, and then they lost their first game in the Big Ten tournament to Minnesota. Ryan Klein and Carson Edwards weren't shooting the ball that great. Carson Edwards, I think, was like 0 of 24 at the IU game to end that season. They barely won on a Matt Harms tip. People forget that Carson Edwards couldn't hit a shot to save his life that day. And then all of a sudden they caught fire. And obviously that's the hope, is the law of averages, the percentages. Craig talks about it. He's a big numbers guy in that sense as well. And, just personally, as someone that's watched Sasha dribble the basketball every game since his freshman year of high school, he shows up when the lights are brightest. So the fact that he didn't hit some of those shots yesterday was a surprise. Every time it leaves his hand, I think it's going in. So definitely, no, as you said, nobody's more disappointed than him. But I have all the faith in the world that he's going to get hot when it counts. But, we'll have to wait and see. It's no guarantee, and that's the beauty of sports. The other team gets as they say in professional sports, gets paid too. But I guess they're getting some NIL money. Would you have been? You'd have been all over that NIL stuff, huh?
Man, I definitely would have tried. That's for sure.
Trying to think of what a good defensive, like, it would have been like a security system, something with lockdown, to be your good sponsor.
If they wanted to pay me some money, I would have done it. All right.
Well, we're gonna give you a couple more. You've given us so much of your time here tonight. And it's, you're in Brazil, so it's, coming up on 10 p.m. It is 10 p.m. where you are right now. And you're just, as you said at the start of this interview, just 2 days removed from an ACL injury. And we can't thank you enough for coming on and sharing your thoughts here tonight. We enjoy your passion so much and your thoughts that you share on Twitter, but to put it into words on video here tonight certainly means a lot to us and the Boiler fans watching. So I'll let Craig give one more, and then we'll tuck you into bed.
Well, I'm assuming you're going to ask him for a bracket prediction before you let him go, Greg. So
you can ask whatever you want. I just shoot from the hip. I have no idea what I'm going to say next.
Well, we're not going to play Kentucky because Murray State's going to knock them off in the second round, so I'm not worried about them at all yet.
Okay.
I had a question actually that somebody from the group put forward when Robbie was on, and then I guess Robbie thought it was more important to get on the plane before the plane left before I could get the question in. But what the person wanted to know was, for those of you guys that played 12 years ago, 10 years ago, whatever, is there any sort of does Painter or the assistant coaches or anybody, do they connect you to the current players in any type of informal mentorship role or anything like that at all? Do you guys still stay, obviously I'm assuming you guys stay close with Paint still, but in terms of current players, is there any type of interaction there at all?
Yeah, we all definitely still talk to Coach Paint. And I think what's really kind of helped that relationship especially with the new coaches and things like that, is the alumni weekend that they have now. The game, and then you get to meet the new players and things like that. But before the Big Ten tournament, Elliot Bloom, the director of basketball operations, sent out, I don't know, it was like a mass text with every player on Purdue, their phone number, and said, here's the guys. Would love if you guys could reach out, give any encouragement, any advice, whatever it may be to our guys, gave all the numbers, and, the ball was in your court. I didn't reach out to anybody at that point. I'm definitely going to before they go into the NCAA tournament. I've talked to Sasha a little bit, maybe in like a Twitter DM or something like that. But, I'll try to show my support, in just my direct tweets at them during the game. Or if I think Sasha was on fire the one time and I was splasha, whatever. And, or Trevion was killing, or what if Jaden takes off and does something crazy. So I don't know the guys as well. Obviously with COVID, it's been a little bit different in getting those in-person interactions. But, I'm definitely going to reach out to some of the guys, give them some encouragement moving forward, try to get them to, forget the Big Ten tournament, keep your eyes, on the prize. This is the big dance. It's, the biggest stage in college basketball. And just for those seniors especially, this is my 12th year playing basketball overseas, and you'll never get the camaraderie, the bond that you have with your teammates, that you have with your coaches like you do in college. It's not going to happen. So just take full advantage of it, embrace this opportunity, embrace the challenges that come along with it, stick together, and, go out there and create one hopefully long, 6-game memory here that, they'll never forget, and that, Purdue fans will never forget. But, they just need to go out there and relish this opportunity and stick together and just live it up, because there's nothing like March Madness, and there's nothing like, being a senior and leading your team to places that people didn't think you could go.
Absolutely. Certainly what we're hoping for. I thought it was a mostly successful weekend over the weekend. They fell short, but like you said, I think they're making strides defensively. Now we need them to clean up the turnovers. I think Painter pulled out a few hairs when that was transpiring in the first half. I mean, he was just kind of beside himself every time he'd turn around. He's just like, what do you do? It's like waterfalls at times. When it comes to that, maybe we can speak that into his. We spoke the defense into existence, and we get a little light from that. So maybe they can, sharpen up on the, turnovers and clean it up and not play as, free or sloppy, when it comes to that, and do what needs to be done. The one thing I did want to ask, I pulled up the picture a few times. Steph Curry is, in my opinion, the best basketball player in the world. I don't like LeBron, so he'll never get that. He'll never get that mark from me because I'm a LeBron hater. I'm a Bulls fan, so this is the house that Jordan built around here. But I have a lot of love and respect for Steph Curry and, just what he's done to the game. I mean, you look at Caitlin Clark on the women's side of things. She's doing Steph Curry things now. It's like, you watch Damian Lillard pull up from half court to win a playoff series in Game 7. And, something everyone brings up with you is how you shut down Steph Curry when he was at Davidson. What are your memories of that game? And what are your thoughts that all these years later, now Steph Curry is known as one of the greatest players in NBA history?
It's funny. No matter what Steph does, They win the NBA championship. He wins an MVP, breaks the 3-point record, whatever it is. My Twitter feed is blown up with, that picture, the stat line, 5 for 26. And I get all the credit for the defense that we played, and it wasn't me. It wasn't just me. It was Keaton Grant. It was Lewis Jackson. But my job was, I won't say it was easy, obviously, because Steph Curry then isn't Steph Curry now, but he was still unbelievable. And it was, just don't let him get the ball. I mean, just chase him around, deny him. And I was good at that, I embraced that role. I said, okay. We'll leave it to, I'll put all my effort into defense. I'll pass the ball to Robbie, Juwan, and Eton. We'll win games, and everything's great, But, that game was awesome. I didn't remember this until I was doing something with Robbie and Coach Painter. I think they said that Davidson played Duke like 2 days before they played us in Hinkle Fieldhouse in Bankers Life. And that was one of the facts that I didn't remember. Obviously, I spaced that fact out and just we were up 19-0 against Davidson. Steph Curry had, he was 5 for 26. We won. That's all that matters. It doesn't matter who they played 2 days ago.
Right.
I get all the credit for that, and that wasn't all me. That was a team effort of Keaton Grant, Lewis Jackson, myself, each one more. And then obviously the help side of, everyone else that played, Robbie, Juwan. I don't even remember who else on our team at that point, but it was definitely a collective team effort. You don't do that by yourself, not
Sure.
against a player like that.
Pretty cool though, to always maybe one day tell your kids and things like that. And then the other thing that stuck out to me in your old school pictures, or in any picture I've come across you playing ball, you got your tongue out, And
Yeah.
like I said, I was raised by the school of Michael Jeffrey Jordan. Is any MJ inspiration behind that? Is that where that came from, or is it just a nervous tick while you're playing? But seems like every picture I came across, your tongue's out.
I wish I could say that it was just all inspired by Jordan. I wish
We
I
all
could say
wanted
that.
to
I
be
don't
like
know why.
Mike, right?
I mean, at that point when I was, everybody wanted to be like Mike. There was, but I don't know. It just happens. No matter what, the tongue is out. So let's just roll with that it was inspired by Jordan, and we'll leave it at that.
You got some MJ blood in you. You got some MJ. Well, it's a cooler look. You got the cooler look than Bobby. We caught Bobby on the telecast against Michigan here. What do you think? That's not exactly the MJ look. I don't know. That looks more like, Painter, let one loose or something. I don't know.
That's either Coach Paint let one, or Bobby thought somebody had a nasty move, or Bob's making a kissy face to Chelsea or something on the screen. I don't know.
Oh yeah, Bobby. Maybe next time when we bug you to come on, we'll bring Bobby on, and you two can trade punches. But final thought before we let you go: any predictions for the NCAA tournament? Obviously, we all just want to see the Boilers take it home, right?
I kind of want to hear his Final Four if he's had time to look at it.
You got a Final Four, just let her rip. However you want to do it, just don't jinx our squad.
Honestly, I haven't even looked at the full bracket. I watched a selection show last night, and I haven't even looked at the full bracket. But off the top of my head, let me see here. I think Gonzaga has a great draw. I think they'll walk into the Final Four. I love Arizona, but I want the curse or whatever, his ankle, that scares me a little bit. I think he's a big part of their team.
Absolutely.
Tennessee's playing really good basketball. I think they had a pretty good draw, even though everyone was pissed that they got a 3 seed and not a 2.
What about the Big Ten teams? Who can you see? How many do you think could advance to the Sweet 16? Illinois, Wisconsin, Iowa, Purdue.
I think Purdue. I think Iowa. I think Indiana.
Wow, Indiana.
I think Indiana can beat St. Mary. I think they can win. I think they're playing good basketball.
I agree.
They rely on TJD. They rely on Xavier Johnson. When Race Thompson plays well, when some of those guys make shots, and because they guard, they compete, they guard, and if they can score the basketball, if they can make some outside shots, it's a whole nother level for them. Illinois is only going to be as good as Alfonso Plummer and Frazier, in my opinion. Those are the guys. You know what you're going to get from Kofi. Those guys have to lead the way. They have to make shots. They have to get everybody else involved. But I think, when you have a monster like Kofi, he can lead you and get you to a lot of places because he's a load. He's hard to defend. But I like Wisconsin. As long as Johnny Davis is healthy to get to that point.
They got home court basically throughout. They're in Milwaukee to start, and if they're to advance to the Sweet 16 Elite 8, they're in Chicago.
Hey, but let's just be honest. Playing in Milwaukee's not playing in the Kohl Center. It's a little bit different.
It was a madhouse in the Kohl Center. It was
the refereeing is a little bit different in the NCAA tournament than in the Kohl Center. So they got to go out there and they got to play.
Yeah, in full shirt off, paint all over his belly while freaking Zach Edey's trying to shoot free throws. He's got a bullseye around his belly button. I'm like, man, I couldn't do it. I'd alligator arm every free throw.
But I think the Big Ten has the recipe to be really successful, but you got to show up. You can't be scared of the bright lights. You can't be scared of the big stage. When that popcorn's popping, you got to go out there and be ready to show out. And, there's, the NCAA tournament, there's no cupcakes. Everybody can play. You can't overlook anybody. And that's the beauty of the NCAA tournament. One bad game, you overlook somebody, you don't make shots, whatever the case may be, your season's over. So, who cares about everybody else, but especially Purdue, it's as cliche as one game at a time. It's every possession. And for Purdue, they can't let one mistake snowball into 3, 4, 5 mistakes in a row. They got to worry about the next play and, make that the best play and then just keep building off of that. And then I think if they don't turn the basketball over and they can make free throws at least 70% clip, I think they're gonna be really tough to beat, especially after the first round when you have to prepare for them so quickly.
Absolutely. And that's what we're hoping for is, when lights get brightest, that these guys show up and do what needs to be done and get Purdue fans on a more positive, wavelength, because man, they are tough. They are tough. They remind me a lot of Cub fans before we ever won a World Series. So I understand it, but at the same time, I really truly believe in the power of positivity, and I try to will Purdue fans to try to be positive, especially if you're in the stands. You can tweet all day. That ain't going to do nothing. Nobody's listening to anybody on Twitter, even if you think they are. But in the stands, I want everybody to really rally behind these guys because it has been a great year. Yes, they fell short of some goals, but, first team to ever be number 1 ranked in the country in Purdue's history. Certainly nothing to snub your nose at. And they've been playing in Super Bowls, it feels like, every other day with the other team's Super Bowls, I should say. So I think they're more battle tested than any team in the country, but I'm also extremely biased. So I'm excited to see what they can do here come on Friday afternoon in Milwaukee against Yale. First things first, and then we'll see where they go from there. Kris, really, really appreciate all your time. We've had a lot of former players on this year, and you certainly brought it, man, and can't thank you enough. And we wish you a speedy recovery with your injury. And I guess, get to the rehab and enjoy your beautiful family.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate it. Thanks for having me on. It was a lot of fun.
Yes, sir. Don't yell at me in the DMs for being too long. And I talk too much. I talk too much, Kris. But we were so excited to bring you on. I know Purdue fans excited to have you, so we had to pick your brain a little bit. But next time, if we want to bring you on, I promise if you want it shorter, we'll do it shorter.
Man, no worries. At 10 o'clock, my family, they're watching Sing 2 right now, so everything is good. But, I think –
I got a 4-year-old daughter, so I know what that's like. Watching
my daughter, 4. So,
Madagascar every night.
I think just, lastly, I think there was so much hype around the season and so much anticipation. And everybody was expecting Big Ten championship, Big Ten tournament, Final Four, all of these things before, Purdue even played one game. And living up to those expectations is hard. Obviously, the other team is preparing just as well as, just like every other team. And there's a lot of physical factors that go into this. And, they fell short of 2 goals that they had. But, the biggest goal, let's say, is right in front of them. So, Purdue fans, get out there, get to Wisconsin, show up and show out, rep the gold and black or the black and gold, and, do everything you can to support the team, show them as much love as you can, and, cheer as loud as you can for Purdue to win.
Yes, sir. Will do. I'll be in the stands as per usual on Friday, and then hopefully Craig can join me. He'll be on a flight on Friday, so hopefully maybe Sunday he can make his way out there and be in the stands, and we'll do our part. But we appreciate you doing your part here today on Brags in the Stands, and we look forward to talking to you some other time, but we'll catch you on the mean streets of Twitter until then.
All right, guys. Appreciate it.
Have a good night.
Thank you.
That is Kris Kramer, legend of Purdue Boilermakers basketball and a professional basketball player now out in Spain or Brazil. Spain. I kept saying Brazil. Spain.
I was confused.
I'm tired, man. This is 3 days of the Big Ten tournament. I was at the gas station getting food at lunch, and I almost walked out without paying. And the lady's looking at me like, not only did I almost walk out without paying, I was walking out a door that was completely opposite of where my car was. So I literally was just lost in my thoughts. And she was like, I was like, I'm sorry, I'm not shoplifting. I'll pay for this. And so I can't get my head straight right now. He plays in Spain, ladies and gentlemen. I think I did say Brazil the second time around, so I apologize for that. But man, that was a fantastic interview. It's a good thing that we do we did this show early today, Craig, because we filled it up there with Kris. Bobby's already getting Cubs tickets off me. So if Kris ends up coming to the States, we're gonna have to do right by him now too. I'm gonna be giving out a lot of tickets.
Yeah, I could see you licking your chops when you threw the one question out and you actually answered it directly. You were like, "Oh, okay, we can ask some questions here." So.
Yeah, I mean, I want to give like I said, I'm always toting the tightrope with, my personal interests, personal relationships with, obviously Sasha and the team, and I don't want to overstep and over criticize, but I also want an interview to be respectable for Purdue fans. I understand, what I'm a fan just like everybody else of, all these teams. And, I get where the criticism comes from. We're all armchair experts at our house, and that's the half of fun of sports is sports debate. So I don't want to feel like people can't, say how they feel in the moment. Live tweeting during games is a dangerous thing. I do it during Bears games every year, and you'll say things you don't mean, or they look dumb 5 minutes later. But that's what being a fan is all about, is being emotional. Fan is short for fanatic. So, Sasha's catching bullets right now, and that's tough, but that's also what they sign up for when they become athletes on a big stage like this. And I know he can handle it. I know a lot of the guys on the team can handle it. They don't need my protection, but it is what it is. I hope that they can do a lot this tournament to be remembered in a positive light, because yes, they've fallen short here, and we can dive into it as much as you'd like with the Big Ten tournament, and then obviously the Big Ten title falling short. And now people are bracing for the worst here now that they got their draw, and it's like, oh, if they don't get to this point, this season will be forever remembered as a bust. And those are the breaks of competition. You either do it or you don't. So, where is your mindset at now that we've, passed the Big Ten tournament? I know you gave me some thoughts yesterday. If you want to echo those to the viewers now, and what are your thoughts going in now to Friday against Yale?
Man, from that Big Ten tournament standpoint, I thought really I would call that a successful Big Ten tournament. Did they win it all? No. They made it to the championship game. They clicked off 2 games. Nothing about the conference tournament really predicates success in the NCAA tournament. I think the only stat I saw that was halfway indicative was that no team has won a national championship that hasn't won at least conference tournament game. I, for one, hate conference tournaments. I think for Power 6 schools, they hold little value. They're great as automatic qualifiers for smaller conferences. But I think the regular season holds a lot more value, and you already know my thoughts on that. I don't think we lost the Big Ten conference title at Michigan State or at Wisconsin. I think we lost that when we played IU and lost there, lost the Rutgers game, lost to Michigan. I think those 3 games are really what cost the Big Ten regular season title. You expect that at Wisconsin and at Michigan State game to kind of be a 50-50 game. And in our case, it really was, because it took 2 bank threes to go ahead and lose that game at Wisconsin. But I view the Big Ten tournament as a success. Looking past that, I know as a fan, just looking at numbers, there's not a lot of teams that win from Power 6 schools that win 9 straight. So if you're looking at the end goal of winning a national championship, there hasn't been a lot of times where somebody went through a 3 or a 4 game series in the conference tournament and then went ahead and cleaned it all out all the way to the end too. I know UConn did. That's the one example that pops to my head right away. But thinking about trying to string together 9 wins in a row, there's a little piece of me that's almost like, I'm okay with losing that game on Sunday, because I feel a little better about our chances of stringing together 5 or 6 or even 4 games in a row to get to the Final Four type situation.
Yeah, I mean, obviously it would have been nice to have that banner sealed. You get one to put up. But IU fans don't make fun of Purdue because of lack of Big Ten tournament banners or lack of Big Ten regular season banners. They make fun of Purdue fans because they don't have the Final Four national championship banners that are anytime recent, last time being in the Final Four in 1980. So that's what this team has always been pegged for is, the number 1 ranking came out of nowhere for a lot of fans. I somewhat anticipated it when I saw that they were ranked as high as they were preseason. And then just looking at their early season schedule, it was like all I could think about in the month of November. I was like, I wanted them to get it so bad because I just thought it would be such a huge achievement. And they got it, and it was. But then, heavy weareth the crown of the king. And as soon as they got it, they became the hunted, as Kris was talking about. They were no longer the hunter. And ever since they got that number 1 ranking, it's like every night you're getting every team's best shot. And they've, I thought, played very resiliently. Did they play perfect? No. Did they, have some miscues? The Rutgers was a miracle shot. They had hit a game-winning shot with 3 seconds left prior to Ron Harper hitting that half-court bank shot miracle. The Wisconsin home game was certainly a tough one. No paint crew for that game. Certainly schedule-wise was favorable for Wisconsin, but Purdue didn't play very disciplined in that game, and that was a big one. Could have went undefeated at home to help their chances at winning Big Ten title. But I feel like, as I've said in the interview with Kris, that they are the most battle-tested team in the country. No team has had 4 schools court storm them, and those are their only losses. The only time they really got beat down was at Michigan, and that was the most fatigued I had seen Purdue all season, and that was because of a reschedule of a COVID missed game for Michigan, so they had to reschedule that in the thick of one of the toughest stretches of Purdue's season. Now, excuses. They beat Michigan a few days prior, and then they couldn't beat them at Michigan. I mean, other teams had trouble beating Michigan at Michigan, so it is what it is. But, you forget that Michigan was a preseason top 6 ranked team in the country, and they found their way into the tournament. They actually were seated higher than Indiana, who Indiana beat Michigan in the Big Ten tournament. That holds a little more credence to your theory that the Big Ten tournament doesn't matter when it comes to seedings, because I would have put Indiana ahead of Michigan. They beat them. I personally feel like Indiana got hosed with the last 4 in selection and having to play in Dayton tomorrow night. But I know no Purdue fans are upset about that, but that's just kind of how I saw it. But I feel like they battle all the way through. It felt like the everything kind of fell their way. Matchup wise, they got ranked 3rd seed in the Big Ten tournament, which as far as the teams that were coming their way, it kind of all fell into place. They got Penn State, and then Michigan State, who they almost beat, playing one of their worst games of the season at Michigan State. So I felt good about that one, and then they proved that outright. And then you get Iowa, who's ranked beneath you in the Big Ten tourney seedings, but they're the hottest team in the Big Ten, and they barely beat IU. So it's just kind of
they're not just the hottest team in the Big Ten; they're arguably the hottest team in the country.
Yes, yeah, I completely agree. They're playing great basketball right now. They almost lost IU the day before. They probably should have, but IU has trouble closing games. They've seen that a lot this season. Yeah. And, but I agree that IU's playing really good basketball right now. That was a hell of a game. Jordan Bohannon hits 3 threes at the end, and then the one to win it was a miracle bank shot. You got to tip your cap to them because they battled their way back. The 17 turnovers is the biggest concern. They can't have that. When you're a team that has your mishaps defensively at times, and sometimes you can't hit free throws, which is a big concern when you get to the March Madness tournament, and that's nothing you can control. Painter talks about it ad nauseum because fans and media keep asking, how do you fix this? Well, they're not trying to miss free throws. And the problem is 2 of the guys that go to the free throw line the most aren't necessarily their best free throw shooters in Travion and Jaden. At times Jaden can hit all his free throws like we saw at Illinois, and then there's other times where they don't always fall for him, and that isn't something they can control. So that's probably one of my biggest concerns in the tournament, but nothing you can do about it. Now, turnovers you can do something about. So maybe to your point that it reared its ugly head before the official one and done tournament, so Painter can just kick the crap out of them about it for 3 days, as opposed to it rearing its ugly head this upcoming weekend. Maybe the silver lining. They've seemed to see the light defensively. Now, are they the best defensive Purdue team ever? Not by a long shot, but they're playing much better lately. And even in the Iowa game, I thought they played pretty good defense. And so maybe they can see the light when it comes to taking care of the basketball and not turning it over, because all those missed possessions that I think.
So I was just looking that up, Greg, because I was going to bring something up related to the turnovers and if that actually was the biggest issue in that game. Obviously, you don't want 17 turnovers, obviously. And obviously that needs to be cleaned up. Okay. Total shots that Iowa got up compared to Purdue. Guess what the advantage was?
11 more?
2.
Only 2 more.
because we out rebounded them by 18 rebounds.
Okay.
So, like, to me, I know the turnovers were an issue. I get that, man. But I still worry just about 3-point shooting here lately for whatever reason as a team, not one individual, but just as a team. We haven't shot the ball from 3 the last 5, 6, 7 games like we were at the beginning of the season, like we were at the middle of the season. And I think we got to get that back, man. We got to get Gillis open in space to where he's getting clean looks again. Obviously, the averages are bound to come back to the normal with Sasha. Jaden's going to hit a couple here and there, but that's not necessarily something you're relying on in your game. But, Hunter got hot. I think he had the best 3-point percentage in the Big Ten. Getting him a couple looks, or Isaiah some looks. Newman off the bench. For whatever else we want to talk about, defense, everything else, I think the fact that our 3-point shooting has kind of fell off percentage-wise a little bit here this last 3 or 4 weeks, if we can somehow rediscover that form, man, it covers up a lot of the blemishes that we might see elsewhere on the team.
Yeah, I can't agree more. That is definitely their key. You have Jaden slashing and dashing to the rim and getting in transition. But the 3-ball is what really blows the top off this team. And you saw that in the non-conference play to start the year, where they couldn't miss essentially, North Carolina and Villanova in the tournament in Connecticut, and then Florida State, and all the scrub teams. No disrespect to those teams, but the mid-major schools that they invited to Mackey to get smacked around, the 3-ball was falling. And, it is law of averages when it comes to shooting. I know people just harp on it like, oh, well, he's not hitting shots, but it is a law of averages. And Sasha's a 40% 3-point shooter. So to say don't play him anymore, obviously I'm biased, but it's crazy. Ryan, if Ryan Klein was struggling heading into the Elite 8 runner, Carson Edwards, you're not going to bench those guys. Look what happened. They caught fire at the perfect time, and you just got to hope that that's what happens for these guys. It's not a guarantee, but, I feel like a lot of people are waiting for the I told you so's when it doesn't happen. But, at the same time, you got to be optimistic or hopeful that that's what is turning, that the law of averages does come into play for those guys. As I said in the interview, if Sasha had scored 25 a game in the Big Ten tournament, I would have been as happy as ever, but I'd also be as nervous that it's almost impossible to carry that into another week. So if you're going to pick, that's the spin zone you do as a fan.
It's got to happen.
Right. It's got to happen. But at the same time, law of averages says it will, and that's just how I see it. Jaden's starting to hit his threes again, because he went through a stretch where he couldn't hit them. But he hit some very clutch threes in the tournament. So that's an optimistic sign. Yeah. So,
and I think too, just everybody.
Gillis is a big key too to that point. Not to cut you off, but because he's the one that is this Mr. Efficient Grady Eifert clone, and if he comes back, he's always hitting those. Like Sasha hits some dagger threes against IU in the season finale, but Gillis hits a lot of their dagger threes throughout the year. Now it's been Eric that's been doing that, Hunter. So I think Gillis is a big key to that too.
Yeah, for sure. I think they both are. And I think too, like, we're playing a bunch of teams that get to study Painter's offense for a long time, right? Underwood's been there 5 years, or Izzo's been there forever, whoever. These guys have studied Purdue's system for a really long time. And everybody talks about how hard it is to play defense against Purdue's offensive sets when they haven't faced them, because there's so many variations. And I think I saw something one time that, like, off of one set play, there was like 24 different variations of that same play. So it all looks the same, but then there's a little tweak here and there. Yep. So I really think the quality of shot we're getting is going to be different in the tournament. I don't think those teams are going to just be as dialed in as the Big Ten defenses that we're playing with coaches who've been there for a long time and studied what Painter wants to do. And better looks are going to lead to better percentages most of the time. So
yeah, I completely agree. I mean, one of those plays that they run is this one right here. And then in the Illinois game, they ran this play like 4 or 5 times in a row, and each time they did something different. One time it was pull Sasha out for 3. The next time they do the backdoor cut to Gillis, and works to perfection. Then later in that game, they're getting to their post ups, and instead of Travion just going in like you'd assume, here's the backdoor cut when Plummer turns his head, and then Hunter. And that was kind of the game where Hunter started to come to life for this Boilermakers team. They have a lot of different variations. Hopefully the rivals aren't watching our show, giving all these plays away, but those are some of their staples of their offense outside of just going to the elbow, feeding it into the post, letting Edie and Travion go to work, which is the easiest thing to do, and they certainly can get that done. But all those other variations is what's going to start throwing teams through a loop. And then you have Jaden Ivey, who is capable of just about anything on a court when he puts his mind to it. So they're a dangerous team. It's just like Kris said, I agree with it. It's to get back into that Hunter mindset. And you kind of felt like they were in the Michigan State game. They had something to prove. They lost to them, so they wanted to beat them again. It's the old adage, Iowa, we beat them twice. It's hard to beat a team 3 times. Well, that ended up proving out to be true, because they're the hunter. They want to beat the hunted. It's just a mentality thing. It's human nature in a lot of ways. So you look at this tournament, Yale's the hunter, but you won't speak to me for months if we can't take down Yale. I won't have my phone shut off. I got my buddy in the chat, or at least he was to start the show. He's trolling us with his Bears comments because he's texting me before the game that I'm not doing any Bears free agency talk. It's March Madness talk, but he'll also be the first one harassing me if Purdue falls short. So, I'm turning my phone off if they can't beat Yale, but I have a lot of faith that they can, not trying to jinx anything. But then as you go forward into the next rounds, if they were to play Texas or Virginia Tech just beat Duke, so they're no pushover as an 11 seed. I feel like, obviously that's a game Purdue would be favored in and looked at as the big dogs. But I just feel like at some point, especially if it's against Texas, I'm hearing all this talk about how Chris Beard is, the Chris Beard. I didn't realize Chris Beard is going to be posting up if we got to play him on Sunday. But apparently Purdue can't beat Chris Beard. So, if that's how everybody wants, well, then maybe Painter's got something for him this time. And then if they were to get past that game, if we're lucky enough to see them get into the second weekend, they will be underdogs the rest of the way if the bracket holds. If it holds to what it's supposed to be, which would be Kentucky and Baylor and then Gonzaga potentially in a Final Four. I'll take it, honestly. It may be the hardest road in the world, but if Purdue can get back to that hunter's mentality and prove us against the world, nobody believes in us. That's something in competitive sports players feed off of. You saw the dog masks that the Philadelphia Eagles were wearing all the way through their Super Bowl run, with Nick frickin' Foles leading them to a Super Bowl victory over Tom Brady, who was recently retired and now has decided to come back. After 2 weeks of spending time with his family, he decided, I'm going to go back and play some football. So
I don't want to talk about that as a Colts fan. My girlfriend is a huge Tom Brady fan, and I broke the news to her. Apparently she hadn't seen it yet, and she was so excited. She was beside herself, and it was more than I could handle.
I'm watching bracket coverage. I hope the cops aren't watching, but on my drive home, I got the iPad on the seat next to me and the bracket show on, just seeing the reveal and listening. I'm not watching it, but then all of a sudden they're talking about, I look over, glance over, they're talking, it says something about Tom Brady. I thought I had to look at it 3 times. I thought it was a joke or something. Here he's back. I've always liked Tom Brady, had respect for him. He's Michael Jordan-esque as far as in the stature of football, and greatness. But then I also appreciate that he's coming back because it makes life harder on Aaron Rodgers to win another Super Bowl. And I don't know if the Bears are going to be the team that's going to make life harder on Aaron Rodgers just yet. They're at the ground floor building up with your old Colts boy, Matt Eberflus. So there's our football talk for the day. But going back to the March Madness tournament, I mean, I'm excited. I'm a Friday.
I don't see Yale doing it. We can.
I guess their tallest player is 6'7".
Well, and for those smaller schools, smaller programs, usually they got to have one of a couple things. They have to be a really high quality 3-point shooting team. They're just okay. They're not special from that standpoint, or a team that has a whole bunch of quick penetrating guys with some length at the wings, but play small ball and kind of out small ball the teams that come in with a bigger center. They're not either that type of team. They don't necessarily have high defensive intensity pressure. I'm not real worried about that one. Obviously, as you go to the next step, Texas is missing one of their best players. Chris Beard does give us nightmares because of a previous upset. When he was at Texas Tech, there's also a little bit of an ag rival between the Texas Tech schools and Purdue schools. So it was even more hatred between those two. But I don't know that they've got it. I think they've lost 4 in a row, and they can play really good defense, probably turn us over some, but I just don't know that they've got the offensive firepower, even if they do create some turnovers to hold with us. Virginia Tech, really good 3-point shooting team, really quick athletic guards. They're probably the one of those three that jump off the page is, okay, gonna have to have our A game on for that one from that standpoint. Obviously in all three situations, but that's the one that does jump up off the page and kind of.
Well, you saw they took it to Virginia Tech.
To Duke.
Duke.
Yeah. But they've won 4 in a row here. They got to string together some other ones, so they're bound for a bad game in there probably somewhere. They did barely beat Clemson, so.
Yeah, and hey, like you said, maybe the bracket falls Purdue's favor this time, and there's some upsets. You mentioned Murray State could be a team, or San Francisco. Murray State versus San Francisco for the right to play Kentucky.
I think both of those have a shot.
San Francisco's had a resurgent or coming out of nowhere kind of year in the WCC. I know me and Bobby don't think much of Gonzaga's conference, but they had St. Mary's, San Francisco, Gonzaga, and did the fourth team make it? Who would be their fourth team, or is it just those three?
I thought it was just 3.
It's just those 3. So hey, they proved it out. San Francisco was sweating a little bit if they were going to get revealed in to is it BYU? Is there other school in there?
I'm not sure.
I don't know that conference. I think BYU's in their conference, but so we'll see. It'll be interesting to see how it all unfolds. Milwaukee's going to be the place to be. I hope Boiler fans can show up and show out and be loud and get the Boiler up chants going and the defense chants going, inspire the troops. So we'll have to wait and see.
You got your bracket filled out yet?
No, I don't. I don't think I'm doing one. I really don't.
Come on.
Yeah, I don't think I'm a very superstitious person, and I mean, if I'm filling one out, I'm just going to have Purdue win it all because I can't bring myself to write something down saying they're going to lose. So what's the point of me filling one out if that's all I'm going to do? Because, if it happens, great. Maybe that's what I should do then. And then I'll win a lot of money because everybody's just going to pick against them because I guess they have no shot according to everybody, including Boiler fans most of the time from what I read. But the other thing is then if Purdue, God forbid, gets eliminated, it'll be hard for me to. I mean, I'll watch, but I'm not going to be bracket obsessed like I have in my younger days and watching every game to see how many upsets I get right and how many Final Four teams I get right. I'm so focused on Purdue doing the damn thing and my buddy doing the damn thing to secure his legacy. He's had a great, amazing 5 years, and I know he's very proud, and everybody that's friends and family to Sash is very proud of everything he's achieved at Purdue.
Mm-hmm.
To think he was like a 394th ranked recruit coming out of high school, and nobody knew who this guy was, and anybody that watched him at Crown Point could have told you this dude's cold-blooded, but nobody wanted to believe it because he just looked like he had that baby face, and he's a scrub. Even some people that live in this town would laugh at me that live in Crown Point and were Purdue alums. I'd have to beg them to go to Crown Point games. They wouldn't go. And who the fuck cares about it? I'm like, dude, I'm telling you, they're so much fun to watch. They had one kid, Grant Galon. He went to IU, and that was Sasha's junior year. Their junior year, they had one kid that was going to IU, and then they had another kid that hadn't happened yet, but he was going to be going to Purdue, and if that was a team in Southern Indiana, that's a big deal. Even when Grant committed to IU, he played that whole season as a commit to IU. And half the time, people in the town wouldn't come to see him. He was one of the hottest shooters in the country in any level of basketball. At one point, Grant hit like 11 threes in one quarter, and half the gym's empty. If there was an IU commit in Southern or Central Indiana, every IU fan in the state's going to see him.
Right.
And so it would always baffle us when we'd go to games, and they eventually got the support that they deserved as a fun team in high school. And, it was sad when it ended as his senior year and they fall short in the sectional championship to Maryville, who at the time were like, how the hell do you lose to Maryville? Well, they ended up having like 5 guys from that team play at Drake. So, they had a bunch of Division I players that just at that point hadn't gotten their scholarships yet. So, but to see what he's achieved here has been so much fun. I wanted to bring him on, at some point before the season was over, but he's got so many commitments with, he does his Sasha live show with Tom Brew, and I don't want to be the person that overextends his plate. He's got a tournament to worry about. And
it'll be more fun to have him on after a Final Four run anyway.
That's what I'm saying. Win a fucking national championship, and let's bring him on and talk to him about that, because that would be great. That would be just sublime. But we got to do the damn thing first. But so we'll see. I hope he turns it around. I ain't gonna be running my mouth to fans, talking their smack. They can talk whatever smack they want, but this guy has been a consummate. He's been everything of what a Purdue Boilermaker is, and Purdue fans should be proud of him and Travion and Eric. They've fought through a lot of adversity. They had one season, I know they probably wouldn't have made the tournament that year, but COVID just ends their season. Then the next season they play in a empty Mackey for their entire junior year with this exciting team with 4 freshmen that come out of nowhere. Nobody's in the freaking stands, and then they fall short against North Texas and in the Big Ten tournament. And everybody's, they'll talk about that North Texas game forever, but nobody wants to remember the year that was, how fun it was, the resurgence of these freshmen. Well, because nobody went to the games, so you couldn't feel it. Well, Sasha, that Travion, Eric, that's one of their years. Kris Kramer, he had 4 years of filled houses at Mackey, to play through this pandemic and all the different adversity, just trials and tribulations of your own personal accomplishments. Fans should be proud of these seniors, proud of Jaden Ivey. They're, Jaden's getting ready to go to the NBA. Zach Edey is going to end up in the NBA. These guys, you don't get them forever. So why don't you appreciate it? As I said before, the Big Ten tournament title game, appreciate the journey. That's all. The journey is more fun than the destination. It's stressful for the Cubs to win the World Series. It took like 20 years off my life, just that one game alone. The season was more fun. Enjoy the games, the Big Ten tournament, when they're not knocked out. They have a game next week. They win or lose, enjoy it, because once it gets to the end, it's sad unless they're able to, do the whole thing. And only one of those teams gets to do that, and everybody else goes home disappointed. So that's my long rant when it comes to just appreciating what you have while you have it. Do I think Purdue will be fun here in the years to come? Absolutely. Miles Colvin is the real deal Holyfield. I'm gonna go make a point, and maybe me and Craig can go see him live. I'm excited about these two freshmen coming in next year. I'm excited about Trey Kaufman-Renn coming off his redshirt freshman year. There's a lot to be excited about the future, but
don't forget about the Swede that's got the sweet outside jumper for a 7-footer.
We got the point guard, top 50 recruit coming from Utah. I know he was originally from Indiana and from locally around here. So, you got some big time guys coming in. So they're not falling off by any means, but appreciate what you got now, first and foremost. That's what I would say in my long-winded rant.
No, for sure. And my feelings about the NCAA tournament. I've said it multiple times on here that I think the NCAA tourney is really, really exciting. I think it is the worst way to pick a champion. One game compared to like a best of 7 or a best of 5 series. I know it can't be done in college basketball, but in terms of actually finding the best team on a yearly basis or the best 4 teams for the Final Four, it probably happens less often than it does the way we do college football, which everybody hates the way we do that. But that's probably a better way of actually finding the best team from that standpoint, because the regular season means so much to what you do in college football, for example. And I think it's going to be exciting. And to your point, enjoy it, man. Matchups mean a heck of a lot.
Yep.
Just one night, man, like one night, it's about who's feeling good, who's shooting good, all that type of stuff. And it could end up going really, really well for us. Maybe it doesn't, but enjoy it along the way, because that year we point back to 18-19, that took 2 absolutely Herculean 3-point shooting efforts, record-breaking 3-point shooting performances for that team to get where they did. And you hope everything falls in line that same way another time, but maybe it won't. So enjoy each one of the games we get while we get them. Going to be the last time you see the 3 seniors. If it's not the last time we see Jaden, I'll buy everybody that's listening a 6-pack, because I'm pretty convinced that's going that way. I might hit him up for a loan if that's the case, but either way, I think we do need to enjoy it.
Absolutely. And enjoy it. We will. Hopefully you can make it to Milwaukee on Sunday. I'll be driving back Friday night. So if you want to meet at my house and drive out Sunday, ticket prices are getting kind of hefty, which surprised me. I didn't expect that. I mean, I guess I should have, but it's just so far from Mackey and so far from Texas and Virginia Tech and Yale. I was anticipating, tickets being decently affordable. And maybe as the week goes on and it gets closer to game day and these scalpers aren't getting what they want, the market will drop on them. So I'll keep a close eye on that.
Well, I'll have to have you get me a ticket from somebody that's leaving the stadium that just had a team lose.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
I bought 4 tickets for the same price that I bought one.
Look at this idiot. Look at this guy in the chat. He's supposedly my friend. To get him to tune into a show. I'm honored, Phil, but comes in here harassing us with his Yale, and this is a guy, Craig, that I took to the North Carolina game with his lovely wife. And he got to see all the greatness that was Purdue that day and how much fun this team is. Got to meet Sash and his family and, always, has all the love and respect for them. But then he's coming in our show saying, let's go Yale. He knows he played at Hofstra in football. His dad's a legendary high school football coach. He's one of the biggest Chicago Bears fans I know. And so he doesn't really watch any other sports. He doesn't watch baseball. He doesn't watch basketball. He only watches, he lives and breathes football 365 days a year. So, trying to get him to come to the Purdue side. He says he's rooting for Purdue. So But you know, the let's go Yale stuff, you better ease up on that one, Philatosian.
So what you're saying is it's a lot of painful years.
Exactly. He should respect, you know, as a Bears fan or, you know, me as a Cub fan. I mean, how can you not have some empathy for Purdue fans? They've been through a lot. Bears fans have certainly been through a lot. You know, and yeah, that's right. Serbian Sniper all day long. Thank you, Phil. Phil and Shane coming into my show today. There, you can find them on the Tape Never Lies Network, breaking down the NFL free agency. Bears just got a D tackle from the Bengals that nobody cares about until we get to training camp. But they'll be breaking it down extensively on their, you know, great football network, the Tape Never Lies Network. They do a great job over there. They're okay, you know. They drive me nuts, but you know, I love them. So I'm stuck with them is really what it is, you know, but they think that they're stuck with me. So we're kind of stuck with each other is what it is, correct? But yeah, it's been a fun show today. Wrap things up here and go on our merry way. Early show because our guy Kris Kramer is over there in Spain, not Brazil.
Different continent.
4 hours ahead, as opposed to when we had Isaac Haas on, who was 13 hours ahead in China. So trying to make these interviews work for the guests is a little tricky, but that's what we try to do is accommodate our guests as best we can. We're not going to make Kris come on at 1 a.m. So we started it a little early today. Kris just shared it along on his platform. So if you end up watching it later, we appreciate it. But for all those that tuned in live, we appreciate you guys. And for the guys that got their questions in, I forgot to bring this up to Kris. John Hardesty said the red and white hat didn't look so good on Kris's head. I forgot to bust his chops about that. But we appreciate you, Brian Duger and Greg Jones and everybody, even Shane and Phil, for tuning in and giving their support as I see my daughter and lovely wife have just gotten home. She's in the backyard playing in the sand. So I think that's a good spot to wrap things up. Go out there and chase her around with the leaf blower as I've been doing lately. Maybe stop talking and rest my voice before I lose it completely. Craig, you were texting me. It sounds like I smoked 2 packs of Marlboro Reds, and it certainly feels like it. Doing a lot of screaming last week and fully intend on doing a lot more screaming this upcoming weekend. So any final thoughts, Craig, on the tournament, the bracket, the Boilers, the interview, whatever you want? Final words for you, my friend.
Man, I just thanks again for letting me come on with you. Love the chance to get to talk to Rafael and Kris and Robbie and some of the guests that we've had this year. And we'll see how far we go, I guess, as to whether we get to do another one of these yet this year or not. But it's been a lot of fun and certainly appreciate it. Enjoy talking to you and Bobby as well. Bobby's a regular in my messages now because we agree on most things basketball. So whenever he's got an opinion, I shouldn't say whenever, but he's hit me up a couple times about things. He saw something I tweeted the other day and said, man, I think we had our first disagreement finally. So it's been a lot of fun so far.
Well, hey, you're not just a guest on this show now. You're a staple to it. You're a co-host. And, we put you in the header on Twitter. So it's official. You're stuck with me too now. And you got to deal with one thing I forgot to do and put on the show was I have a video of me doing the left-right chant and then sitting on the visiting bench after senior day when we were all hanging out on the court taking pictures. I forgot to add that to the hopper to play it on the show because I thought you'd enjoy that, trying to exercise some Mackey demons. But maybe we'll bring that up for a show next year when we get back into next year's talk. But who cares about next year? We got this year to worry about. I appreciate everything you bring to the table here for these Purdue coverage. And yeah, it's definitely been a lot of fun with all the different former players we've had on, as you mentioned. Maybe we can get my guy Ryan Klein, maybe the March Madness Big Dog himself. Maybe we can get him. There's his friend stalking in the background, but me and Ryan, we got to sit next to each other for the Michigan State game, so that was a lot of fun. And I called him the Dennis Rodman of Purdue basketball, and he kind of laughed. He was like, that's not a good thing. I was like, no, I mean that as a compliment. I love Dennis Rodman, but he's a wild child and still is to this day. So maybe we'll get Ryan Klein to come on next and talk some ball with us. We had him on last year and talked a lot about his legacy and everything. So maybe we can just talk some regular hoops action and everything going on right now. So we'll see if we can fit him in, and we'll do a wrap-up show one way or the other. I don't know if my heart can bring myself to it unless we're talking about some happy times. But, if they can move to the second weekend, we'll have coverage bringing to you. So one step at a time. Don't want to jinx anything here on Brags in the Stands. So, but yeah, again, thank you very much for all your help here on the show. And thank you to all the viewers. And once again, thank you to Kris Kramer, legend of Purdue basketball, one of the greatest lockdown defenders this program has ever seen. And definitely one of my favorite interviews, but we've done some pretty good ones here, and they all seem to bring the heat. But Kris certainly brought that. So maybe the next time we bring Kris on, see that tongue's always out. Maybe the next time we bring him on, him and Bobby, his good buddy Bobby Buckets, can trade some punches, and we can just sit back and watch them go at it. And we have a homework assignment, and that's to bring up the Mad Mushroom story and riding the bus with his dad. I'm going to write those down and make sure we don't forget to bust Bobby's chops about that, and maybe pull a little more from those stories. Let Bobby be the one to tell it. So Kris didn't want to completely throw him under the bus, so he's a good friend, I guess. So that'll wrap things up for today here on Brags in the Stands. Thanks again for everybody watching, and stay tuned for upcoming shows, and we'll do some different announcements here, so just keep your eye out for all of that. Until next time, for Craig Bowers, I am Gregory Braggs Jr., and always boiler up.
The 14 Yale Panthers is sending individual teams today.